Agitavach. This is Yosef Lange with the weekly Zera Shimshon Shir. And this week we're going to do Massei. There's a short piece here. And then I have a beautiful story in the Segulois. It's Chav Zayin Tammuz. We're almost a week before Tisha B'Av. So we're trying to catch up on all kinds of things, and I'm kind of overwhelmed. So we're doing a short one this week. Okay? So again, Chav Zayin Tammuz Tavshin Pei. This is in Parshat Massei again, and it's capital base, the second piece. I encourage everybody to buy a sefer. If you can't get it hold of it, please. It's very available now, not like it used to be, but it's the Zera Shimshon, and you can get a hold of one, and then you can follow along inside. V'yichtav Moshe es moitzaehem lamasseihem hapi Hashem ve'ila masseihem lamoitzaehem. Kasha says Malamahu Maua Kefil. Why does it have to double it? You have to say it twice. Moitzaehem lamasseihem and then moitzaehem lamasseihem. Furthermore, Lama mitchilim higdim moitzaehem lebesoif higdim masseihem. First of all, the first time in the pasuk he says moitzaehem first. And then the second time it says Massei first, and then Massei. So what's this all about? There's a little deep, but it's very logical, very reasonable, because it explains a lot of things that happen in the desert that not stated in Chumash. The Mekubalim write, "Shebe'elu hamasais hechlishu koyach haklipos hashoichenes b'midbar." They in these travels, these 42 travels, they weakened the power of all the klipos that were dwelling in the midbar. Nachash, Soraf, Akrav, Tzimoin, etc., etc. So the snakes and the scorpions and all the nasty creatures there, and they represent, of course, all the klipos, all the spiritual ends of those. And he took out whatever they swallowed up in their mouths. So he took away from them all their holy sparks. So if they were privileged, they would have done this in a very short amount of time. So since they sinned with the Chet HaEgel, so they had to stay there a little longer and work on it. So therefore, the first time it says Maitzaehem, Lamaseim Klema Shemilas Maitzaehem Ratzalem Yitzia Umitzia. So the first time it could have been this way, that it would be they went fast, they went quickly in and out, and it was like finding something that you lost. Like the pasuk in Mishlei says, Chaim Heim Lamaitzaehem. The Maitziam Beped, the Gemara in Eruvin Daf Nun Dalet says, it's when you say Torah, you have to say it out with your mouth. You're not Yotze if you don't say it out. Thinking Torah doesn't work for Jews. You have to say the words with your mouth. That makes the tikkun. I've just read Rabbi Chaim Vital says the same. Rabbi Chaim Volozhiner says the same thing. Rabbi Chaim Vital says also the same thing. V'af im nifrashu lashon yitzia lavad. Even if we explain it, it means just going out, which is the simple meaning. Moitzaehem. Yihiyam mibinyan hapoal. It would be the verb, right? So they would be taking out those sparks that were found in those different places that they traveled to. So they would be found immediately, and they would be able to extract them properly and then continue their travels. Then you'll say, well, there was no time for them to rest then. So then every time they got to a certain place, they would have to immediately go to work and gather all those sparks that were gathered, that were spread around there from all the evil spirits. And then, well, if they got done with it, then they'd have to travel to another spot right away. That's why it's the pasuk says that Moshe has told them to take out everything. Shahayu mamtinim esamasais. They would have to wait. They would the journeys would have to wait for them to finish their job wherever they were. That's what he means in the second pasuk, that their travels waited for them to find the Netzitzes HaKedusha. There wouldn't be such a big bother for the Jews. Because they were anyway going with the mouth when the words of God. When God told them to go, they would go, and he'd pick up the Eish and move. All their travels were done al pi Hashem. Kimai shekasav, it says in Shmois, Esa eschem al kanfi neshorim. I gathered you on the wings of the eagles, or whatever the neshorim is, whatever bird that is. It's a big bird. Al pi masha omer Hashem v'lo yizbulu toirach klal. So since it was al pi Hashem, they wouldn't have to bear the burden of the travel at all, of the work that they had to do. That's all if they wouldn't have sinned. But after they sinned, then they had to wait. So then they would have to wait to do the next travel until they extracted all the puzzle, all the evil spirits there. Would be a big bother of his man Rav, and would take them a long time sometimes. That's how they would gather them together. I think the skula for the Zera Shimshon this week is a little longer, but that's okay. I'm sure by now you, the reader, have come to understand that there's a team involved in making sure the Torah of the Zera Shimshon reaches as many people as possible. And that's what we're trying to do as well. As you can share this with other people, that would be nice. Rabbi Yisrael Zilberberg and Rabbi Binyamin Pashkes work tirelessly to ensure that everything runs smoothly. They are hard at work preparing to print yet another edition of the Sefer in even a clearer format, and they are kept informed about the websites that are devoted to the Sefer and Shiurim being given around the world by the Zera Shimshon enthusiasts. So, I'm going to skip here. Rabbi Binyamin Pashkes related the following. When my phone rang, I wasn't expecting the conversation that ensued. The caller, who introduced himself as Usher Weber, was a total stranger. All these names are pseudonyms, it's not the real names. But he had requests that I was happy to fulfill. Rabbi Binyamin, the man, said, I'm looking for a chavrusa to study the Sefer Zera Shimshon. Is this the right address? Well, what do you have in mind? I asked him. A daily chavrusa? A weekly chavrusa? Once a week. That's what he said. We continued talking, and eventually he confided that although he was already in his 40s and his wife was in her late 30s, they had not yet been blessed with children. But we haven't given up hope. In that case, I told him, learning the Sefer Shimshon can only help your situation. Yes, he concurred. I've heard that many people who began learning Zera Shimshon have seen personal miracles in the children department after even many years. Didn't the Mechaber himself write something along those lines in the introduction to the Sefer? I confirmed that I knew many of those people personally, and that the Mechaber had in fact given such a promise. So, can you find me a chavrusa? He asked, bringing the conversation full circle. At that moment, I suddenly felt a tremendous sense of kinship with this Yid who, although he lived far away, was doing his utmost to try to make this work. Listen, I told him, I want to be your chavrusa. We will learn together once a week on the phone. How does that sound? Give me a time. So it began. We started learning together with them that Thursday night, making sure that to connect via telephone at least once a week. Usually we were each at home when we learned, but sometimes Reb Asher had to travel, and then he'd call me from Eretz Yisrael or even India, wherever his business took him. We were serious about our chavrusashaft, the partnership, right? Treating it with reverence, with the reverence it deserves, well deserved. It was an interesting thing, but during that time, both of us did usually well financially and saw siyata d'shmayel in many areas. And we attributed our joint success to the schus of Zera Shimshon that had become such an important part of our lives. And yet, Although we were both doing so well on various fronts, a year had already passed, and my chavrusa and his wife were still not the parents of a little bundle of joy. At that time, I was working on reprinting the Zera Shimshon, and I mentioned to my chavrusa that I had an idea that might help serve him as a special schus for him and his wife. And I began, I'm currently heavily involved in redoing the entire sefer and printing it on beautiful paper with clear fonts that will make learning the Zera Shimshon a sheer delight. Maybe you would consider sponsoring the printing of the sefer as a schus for what you want most in the world. Rabbi Asher and his wife decided to follow my advice, and we set up a payment schedule in which he would send me a specific sum every month for the next 12 months. We finished working on the sefer soon afterwards and published it, and to great acclaim from all those who purchased the copy. I'm sure you won't be shocked when I tell you that my chavrusa and his wife were blessed with a bechor that year, and that their son was born on the day Rabbi Asher gave me the final payment of the sefer's publication. And authors, I know it sounds unbelievable, but you just can't make this stuff up. There was no doubt in our minds that the schus of the couples being involved in learning and publishing the sefer had stood with them in good stead, and that Rabbi Shimshon Chaim Nachmani himself had interceded for him in Shemayim. Rabbi Asher called me a short time after his son was born. Rabbi Binyamin, he said, I just wanted to thank you for agreeing to learn with me, although I was a total stranger. Our chavrusa had changed all our lives for the better. I can't even thank you enough for everything you've done for us, and for suggesting that we help with the sefer's publication, which helped bring the mechaber's bracha to fruition. He was overcome with emotion, understandably so was I, and it was amazing that what had come through our Thursday night Seder. I hope everybody gets a bracha. I have in mind especially a certain couple that haven't had children. They've been married probably 10, 15 years, I don't know, 15 years probably. So I hope they'll have in the schus of me learning for them, they'll be blessed with a child soon. There's Hashem. Have a good tavach.